Disruptive series of events, which is run by Insight and hosted by me, Joe Lanigan-Smith. I'm one of our senior recruiters in the team. Our Let's Get Disrupted series of events is focused around the leaders of technology and engineering companies, basically, as we get to the bottom of emerging issues and trends across both sectors, really. So we'll run one for the engineering division, and we also run one for the tech team as well. Today's focus is going to be around the human element of automation engineering and the impact that it might have on the workforce over the coming decades. The last one was very much focused around the systems. This one's going to be more focused around the actual human element of it and the people who are going to be putting these systems in place, basically. So this afternoon, we've got three panellists who, among them, should hopefully be able to get to the bottom of the burning topics and the questions which I've written up. So quickly, we'll have an introduction by the panel on who they are and what they do. So we'll start with Lisa, if you can kick us off, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course I can, yeah. Hi everybody, my name is Lisa Sowerbutts. I'm the Managing Director of a company called Cube HR, and we are a HR outsource provider. So we are the HR department for companies that aren't big enough to have their own, or we sometimes partner with really busy HR directors that just don't have enough time to do everything, so they outsource that to us. So we do everything from disciplinaries, grievances, sickness, like you would expect from a HR outsource provider. But where we differ a little bit is that we also do the necessary side of HR as well. So reward, recognition, performance, all that really good stuff, onboarding, succession planning as part of our standard service. So thanks for asking me to come along today, Joe. I'm hoping to give the human element angle from today's panel discussion.
Cool. And yourself, Mike?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Mike Wilson. I'm Chief Automation Officer at the Manufacturing Technology Centre. I'm also Chairman of the British Automation and Robot Association. My background is very much the implementation of automation. I've been doing robot systems in one form or another for nearly 40 years now. So it is very much about implementing robots and automation into manufacturing.
And finally, Russell?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Russell Kinder, former Service Business Unit Manager at ABB, with 20 years of experience in that role. My background mainly electrical engineering within the power systems industry, including engineering, all the way from engineering through operations into service leadership and business management. That's mainly around SCADA and fast level protection devices. So I'm happy to be here, and hopefully we can answer some questions for everybody.
Fantastic. Right, we'll dive straight into it then. The agreed format that we've said is I'll just ask a series of questions to each one of you, and then at the end of it we'll just have any other points. So the first question is, from a business change perspective, how have the panel handled, or how would you handle a project of implementation for robotics and automation systems? I'll probably kick that off with Mike first, if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, the most important point from my perspective is to get the workforce involved, get the operators involved. And there's two reasons for that. One is you stand more chance of getting them buying in to the implementation. But the other one, from a purely technical point of view, is they know what the operation is. They know the tasks they're doing, and it helps you design the automation system right from the start, as it were. Because unless you understand what they're really doing, when you try and automate it, you're going to fail and you won't get a success. So it is very much about the technical side, but also very much about getting them to support the whole idea in the first place. If they support it, they can help make it work.
Good. And over to you, Lisa.
Absolute music to my ears, Mike, that. Yay! There's two obligations to fulfill here, legal and then a moral. So, if the change might lead to restructures, redundancies, job changes or whatever, we're going to need a period of consultation. There are legal procedures that have to be followed with that. If you want to stay out of tribunal, you've got to do things properly. So I'd say legally always make sure you take some advice. But then morally, like Mike said, wholeheartedly agree, communication's key. Open and honest from the start, involve people, ask them for their ideas as well. People are way more perceptive to change if they feel like they're part of that initial thought process. And like Mike said as well, hit the nail on the head. They are the experts. They know what needs exactly to be done. And if you don't involve them, you might get it wrong.
How about yourself, Russell?
Yeah, just echoing what Lisa was saying there. Clear communication is absolutely key, from your project structure through your implementation, through your engineers, through your maintenance. Everybody's got to know what's happening in the right way. One of the key points I got also was the engineering skill set that you're going to need to implement the systems. You don't just need the technical guys. You don't need you do need the technical guys on site, but they also need to be commercially aware, and they're socially adaptable, because things change when systems go into the implementation phase. They don't go quite as planned. So you need those skilled engineers to change and tweak and move with what the client needs. And if you're implementing it yourself, as a client model, you see the changes that are required, and maybe they don't quite fit as planned, like I say. So, but clear communication is absolutely key.
That does actually lead quite nicely on to the next question, which obviously goes into the skills gap. I mean, I know myself, there's a massive skills gap in engineering. You guys will know, having also probably hired numerous people, as have I, that it's still a massive talking point. I mean, I could probably do another webinar on this myself, but how do we go about solving that issue? Because it's just going to get worse, isn't it? Let's be honest, because these systems are very, very complicated. I'll open out to Mike first.
I think there are two answers, if you like. One's shorter term, one's very much long term.
Yeah.
So in terms of the long term, we need to find ways of encouraging more of our school children to go to technical colleges to do engineering-based courses. And to me, that's about attracting them into the colleges in the first place. And I've advocated this for a while, but I'd like the government to put some money into the colleges to give them some equipment. And robots is a great vehicle for this, because robots are kind of exciting, they're kind of sexy, they entice the school kids in to do those courses. It's not because I want lots of robot engineers to come out the back of the courses, but I want lots of engineers to come out, and with the right kind of skills. So we need to encourage more children to leave school to go to technical college. That's the long term. In the short term, if a company's looking at embracing automation, I think it's more about a strategy, a plan, if you like, of not only how are we going to implement the automation, but how are we going to bring the workforce along with us, and actually implementing training themselves to actually educate the relevant staff in terms of things like programming or maintenance or project management, whatever it might be, and build an in-house team that can do it. So I think it's a balance of both of them. So hopefully that kind of gives you a flavour of where I'm coming from.
And how about you, Lisa?
Yeah, further education and training for me. I think our education sector needs to be reaching out to our automation community. I was chatting to one of my friends last night who runs an automation business in the area, and he was saying just the level of support that's available, even geographically, is so different. The Midlands, it's looking quite good, but the further north you come, it's just nothing. And our local colleges are saying, we don't have a course for you because we don't know, we don't understand enough. So there definitely needs to be a partnership approach so that we can help bridge that. And we need more vocational qualifications in schools. STEM skills should be in primary schools right from the start, so that we can start to skill people and start to pull out what they're good at and what they're interested at right from an early age. I think we're still in this really old-fashioned state of let's go and learn English, maths, science, whatever. Yes, but it needs to be relevant. It needs to be more relevant. And I was looking at some of the automation courses on offer here. Go and get a 3-year degree in systems automation, and you look at the entry-level requirements, and you don't particularly need anything before that. So it's like, this is the first time someone's coming into it. It's too late at that age. My daughter's 6. She needs to start learning about this stuff now. And like Mike said, robots are exciting. You start teaching kids things like that at that age, we're going to set up our future generation to want to do that and to be interested in it. So but it's got to be a partnership. The government does need to throw money at it.
No, I'd agree with that. And how about yourself, Russell?
I think once they've gone through, I'll take a slightly different tack to it. I think once they've gone through that training, then they've got to get the context behind it. And I'm a big believer in mentoring and shadowing. You can teach a dog to for new tricks, so to speak, but you don't know or you can't teach them how to bark. That's, in my mind, it's about how you get that knowledge and make sure it's fit for purpose. Because, I'd say, there's any systems courses, you can go and do system courses left, right, and centre. Any kind of course will teach you the basics. Once you get on site, it's very much different. You need to have somebody there that's done that before, that's been there before, that knows the nuances. And you almost need that sort of apprenticeship kind of mentoring and shadowing element to get those skill sets fit for purpose. Because anybody can read a book and a course, but it's how you then make it fit for purpose that is key for me.
And then I think that leads quite nicely on to the next one as well, which is obviously when the workforce are upskilled or when we attracted more people into the industry. How do we empower a workforce to embrace an automation system? Because there's a lot of fear at the moment, isn't there? And obviously there's questions about that further down, but there's a lot of fear that the robots are coming to take my job, basically. How do we empower people to actually see these systems as a benefit rather than a sort of threat, so to speak? And I'll open that up to Lisa first.
Okay, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but communication, again, if a company communicates well with its employee and engages them with the future plans, the team are already going to be on that journey with them, and they'll drive forward their own development rather than needing to be dragged along, or worse, they're not, and then the role becomes irrelevant and they feel like they're not involved. If people know what's coming, how they contribute to that, how they can assist improve it and always know what the plans are, they're not going to live in fear, they're not going to be scared, they'll want to embrace it because we're intrinsically built. You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we want to belong. It's one of our primal instincts, and wanting to be involved and know what's coming, it's naturally inbred into us. So if we're communicating and we're showing people that you don't need to be scared of automation, we want you on the journey with us, we want you to help us advance, and as long as you're open and honest, and then you don't go back on that or give any cause for them people not to trust you and lose your integrity, then it's just win-win for everybody. You'd be a power team.
Yeah. How about you, Russell?
Yeah, again, it's about selling, it's about coaching, it's about giving the benefits to the person to understand why, that the automation system is going to make their life better. Yeah. I've seen this and had this experience many times in my roles previously. Is people are shunning it straight from the front because they think there's something inherently bad about it. That's not the case. It's about how is it going to make your life better? And then once they start to pick it up and touch it and feel it, then you can see the change. And it's so empowering to see them pick the change and then be able to move it forward and go, actually, no. How did I ever used to work before without this? It is, for me, it's about selling, it's a coaching, it's giving the benefits that's key. And
Mike, I'm sure, based on your 40 years, you've probably got a lot of thoughts around this, so I'm interested to see your thoughts.
Well, to me, it is all about communication. It's all about selling the future vision of the business, if you like, and actually investing in the business. Buying automation is a positive thing, yeah. and that can give a lot of employees the confidence that the management or the owners believe in the company, because they're willing to invest in equipment to help the workforce do their jobs better or easier. Companies that don't want to invest are often going in the opposite direction, and people get more concerned about job security when they just see things declining over the years. Whereas if the management's got a vision and they're willing to stand there and say, our plan is we're going to invest X £1,000 over the next few years, and this is what we're doing with it, we want you to come with us, people will accept that, they'll understand that. And in the majority of cases, and I know we're probably going to get into this later, so I won't spend too long on it, but companies that do invest perform better, get more competitive, and they grow. Yeah. And secondly, automation is often used in jobs that people really don't want to do or shouldn't be doing in this day and age, and therefore it's a positive thing. So it is all about selling it to the workforce up front. but there's lots of cases where you can use examples of companies that have done it and been successful. So there's lots of material out there, lots of case studies out there that businesses can use as part of that selling activity.
Yeah, good. I think that leads quite nice on to the next point as well. It's a massive topic in engineering. It's a massive topic across the whole of the whole of the world, isn't it? Really, I mean, mental health. These automation systems, as I mentioned, there's a big fear that our robot's going to take over everything. What do the panel think about the introduction of an automation system, and how could it have an impact on an employee's mental health, i.e., them fearing for their job, basically? I'll throw that out to Lisa first, because I can imagine that's something that you've got a lot of experience in, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it as well. I mean, thank goodness that mental health and talking about it is not as taboo as it once was. We've all got mental health. Sometimes we're in good mental health, sometimes it's poor, like your physical mental health. Let's just look at the impact of the media on people's mental health at the moment with COVID. It's making people very poorly. And it is the same with automation. I bet if you Googled, will a robot take my job, we'll find 100 negative articles about it and probably 10 positive ones, because unfortunately, that is the world. We're living in an environment where we believe what we're told to believe, and it's having a massive impact on us mentally. So here's where employers need to ensure that they are in control of what their employees know, trust and believe. And guess what? That comes back down to communication. We need to ask our teams, are they okay? We need to ask them, are you worried about anything? And we need to create a culture that means if they are worried, they tell us. If we know what our teams are worried about, if we know that they're concerned about the jobs, we can help to mitigate that fear. And, like Mike said, where companies are communicating that we are investing X £1,000 and we want you on the journey with us, it's fantastic, but there's got to be forums set up so that we can talk, and people need to know that they can have those conversations. And I still think that managers feel that they've got to fix it, and they don't. So if an individual said, yeah, it's having an impact on my mental health, or I'm not in a good place, or I'm worried about whatever, even if work related or not, a manager is not expected to pull out a magic wand and fix that person. They can go and take advice. All we want managers to do is start those conversations and create a culture where employees feel comfortable in saying, I'm not doing okay, I want to talk to you about something.
And I'll throw that over to Russell as well for your input.
Yeah, coming from an engineering background, and from my experience, I think the mental health issue around these systems, in general, I think that it'd be beneficial for an employee that is feeling a little bit, what do I do, where I'm at? In an automation, if we can take away the point of it's new, it's going to, it's fearful for your job. If somebody's in that position and you open up this new technology, if somebody's got an engineering background like myself, it opens up a whole new load of challenges of how does this work? Oh, I want to get into it. There's a lot of nuances that you can feel and sort of get that employee's focus away from the dark places into looking into new aspects of the new systems. So in general, I think it is beneficial for somebody who may be, in a dark place to be able to see the light and see and get a grasp of something else and start working with it.
Mm-hmm. And how about yourself, Mike?
I think Lisa and Russell have both made very valid points, and often it's stress that causes the issues, and it might be stress because people are being put under pressure to perform, or they're doing tasks that they don't particularly enjoy doing, or those kind of issues. Now, yes, automation can potentially introduce stress, because if you're not communicating about future job prospects, or if you're putting pressure on people to deliver projects, that's not necessarily a good thing. But if you like, part of the alleviation of all of that is give people the right training, invest in them, give people the time to talk, give people the involvement, empower them to do the job, if you like, and then they take more control over their own role and what they're doing, and that then reduces the stress that's involved in all of that. So to me, it's all solvable. And as Lisa said, getting people to talk is half the battle.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as big a deal as it is a big deal, but it shouldn't be such a big deal if we take the time out to address it, give people the responsibility, give them the authority. And if you like, part of it is allow people to make mistakes. Because if you allow people to make mistakes, as long as they learn from them, then that's fine, because that's how we all learned in the past. And therefore, reduce the stress that people are under.
Good, okay. And that actually does lead on quite nicely to my next point, which is about job creation. I mean, one thing I did want to ask you guys was your opinion on job creation, and will it be a byproduct of the introduction of these systems? And if so, in what fields? Now, Mike, I'm going to throw that out to you first, because I can imagine you've got a lot of ideas about where this is going to be going in the future and future skill sets, for example. So what kind of roles do you anticipate sort of coming up in the future?
Well, personally, I mean, I suppose I ought to say I do believe that automation does create jobs.
Yeah.
And there's lots of studies that demonstrate that. As Lisa mentioned earlier, there's lots of, particularly in the popular press, people talk about robots as a threat to jobs, but at least in terms of manufacturing, the opposite is true. If our businesses are competitive, they will grow, they will employ more people. Now, it is roles like programmers, maintenance people, operators, machine minders, all of those kind of roles that are more technically skilled, but less tied to the production line. So you're no longer governed, if you like, by having to process a part every X number of seconds. You've got a more responsible job. But there are also lots of other jobs that potentially come along in the supply chain, because if a business grows, you then start needing more salespeople, you need more marketing people, you need more everything, if you like. But all the jobs that are created are better jobs and more well paid than the jobs actually on the production line moving things around. So, if you just go back, a little bit in terms of time, when I started work, we had lots of women sitting in typing pools, and all they were doing was typing documents. Those jobs don't exist anymore. They've all gone. But we actually employ more people today than we did in the 70s. So, and that's because of a form of automation, if you like. It was word processors and computers. And all the way through history, we've got exactly the same kind of things happening. We don't have typesetters anymore. We have graphic designers. And the graphic designers, there's more of them than there were typesetters. It's a more skilled job. It's a more interesting job, and it's better paid. So there will be lots and lots of roles, some of which we can't even predict, that will be created. I'm 100% confident that is true. And there's no reason to disbelieve the history, if you like.
I'll throw that to Lisa now. Lisa, job creation because of automation, where do you sit on that?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Mike said. Humans are still needed to fix things, improve things, teach us, the other people, how to use them, program them. I think my only concern with it is the difficulty is going to be the skill sets are going to need to be higher in future. And then we're going to go back to the conversation we've had earlier about the skills gap, and we need to ensure that we don't let that gap get any wider, and work collaboratively to reduce it, please. But yeah, I don't think there's anything much I can really add to what Michael already said.
And how about you, Russell?
Just echoing what Mike and Lisa said, really, in my mind, jobs will change and move with the technology. Yeah. As new things come along, new jobs will be created. Like Mike says, we can't predict where it's going to be. However, it will. Things like that will need to be serviced. Robots still need maintenance. They still fall apart. Still stop working. Until we get to a stage, a long time in the future, when you've got robots servicing robots, for example, then what happens? But I'm talking hundreds of years' time here. But in the short to medium term, at least, we're going to need those back office staff, those patches, those upgrades, that maintenance aspect. This will all grow around the technology as it moves forward.
Good. Next point is about sort of business transformation from actually introducing these systems, and for any business going through a transformation project to an automation system, what support is available from the government and industry bodies to help with training? So I'll throw that out to Russell first, because I can imagine you've got again, a lot of background within that, I would have thought.
Well, to be honest, I mean, from the government perspective, thinking about the training elements, this is key. We've got to get a lot of investment coming in from the government. It goes back to the training element that we were talking about earlier, from transformation and the push of the automation systems into business. I mean, one thing around industrial bodies and training at the minute, one thing I would absolutely advocate, is the OEM training that you get from the suppliers of the equipment. In my experience, it's vastly what's the word I'm looking for? You'll get better value from the OEM product providers on training than you will from anybody else, because they know their systems. You can get to the bottom of it faster. Any queries and technology queries you have about the training or product or whatever it is, you will get that very much quicker from the OEM provider. I know it's slightly off topic a little bit, Joe. Sorry about that.
It's fine. I was just going to say that's what we're here for. We're here to go as off topic or on topic as you guys want. It's very much up to you guys to decide where you take these questions.
Yeah, from my experience, that's where I'd suggest people should go to training.
And how about you, Mike?
There probably isn't enough at the moment. I think it's something we need to do more of. I do know that there have been one or two initiatives. So, as an example, the Made Smarter review, which has been implemented in the Northwest as a pilot program. One of the key elements that the Made Smarter review identified was skills and was the need for upskilling during people's working lives. And that's probably something that's relatively new. A lot of, in the past, if you like, a lot of people kind of went to work and they kind of did the same job all the way through their working life. They didn't change companies too often. Whereas now we're moving companies more frequently. Technology's moving along much faster than it used to, and therefore we need to upskill people fairly regularly. And I don't think we're very good at it. I'm a great example of that. I have a laptop now, and I use Word, I use Excel. I've never been trained on how to use any of them, and half the things in there I don't have a clue what they do. And every now and again I get myself in a mess because I can't figure out how to make it do what I want it to do. But maybe we should actually train all of us in terms of some of those kind of basics. And there are some things underway. So I know the Manufacturing Technologies Association did submit a bid, which they were successful for an upskilling program in the West Midlands. Now, it only was the West Midlands, and I think, to be honest, it hasn't launched purely because this was back in February, and then COVID happened. So I think it's all been postponed. But there are sort of initiatives that are starting to come through. And I just think we need more of them. We need a national program of upskilling, if you like, not just for people that are maybe out of work and looking for jobs, but also people that are in work. Whether we just organise short courses on specific skills, whatever it might be. And I think Lisa made a good point earlier on about better relationships between the colleges and the companies, because that's probably how they're going to get developed, is figuring out how we can do short upskilling courses for specific capabilities, if you like, in all sorts of local businesses.
And over to you, Lisa, on that one.
Yeah, just echoing what they've both said, I think we're falling behind as well. If you look at what's happening in Europe and in China with their advancements, we're way behind in the UK, and even more so regionally as well. It beggars belief sometimes how we can be so different in different geographical locations. So, I think I know the government have got a lot on the plate at the moment, but we're just going to get more left behind if we don't advance quickly with this. And I think, the relationship between colleges, universities, local chambers of commerce as well, and local businesses is imperative to make sure that we drive this forward as it needs to be high on the agenda somewhere.
Good, okay. Next point is about sort of productivity, really. So the implementation of automation should ideally increase productivity of a business process. But how do we maintain productivity amongst staff, if that makes sense? So Russell, I'll throw that one to you first.
I think it comes back to my point about the changing roles around technology. Again, an automation system will change many aspects of the business. You know, production line, it certainly will change the production line of a business. Yeah. The staff will then have to change and move with that technology. So the productivity, you know, in my mind, should maintain because it just changes, because the personnel are doing different jobs, different elements to that, maintenance, servicing, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So the activity should still remain, you know, and that should in itself help drive the system forward. Yeah. They're my thoughts.
Yeah. Mike, how about you?
Well, I do think skills has got a lot to do with it. Communication's got a lot to do with it. You know, I don't want to repeat what we've already said, but I also think, you know, some of it is about a culture of continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not going to necessarily say lean as such, but basically bringing in the thought processes, giving people the time every week to spend a little bit of time thinking about how they can make their own jobs better or easier, and how they can improve what they do, and maybe you give rewards to that. So, you know, there are companies out there that are very good at this, and they're producing significant improvements, and likewise there are other companies that don't do it and aren't producing the kind of improvements. And a lot of it is really about giving the, if you like, the staff the opportunity. So that is the culture, if you like, and then giving them the empowerment to do it. And I think if companies do that, then they can achieve an awful lot very quickly.
Just staying on the topic of reward as well, the next point I wanted to cover was actually the reward structure for staff members. I mean, will it impact reward structure? Lisa, that's probably one of your sort of areas I would have thought.
Yeah, and I think just to add to what the guys have said about productivity as well, I think that productivity is intrinsically linked to engagement, which then links on to reward. So, you know, engaged employees are more productive, will drive things forward like you want them to. But so we need to find out what makes them tick, you know, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. So we need to be talking to people via your one-to-ones, your appraisals, catch-up team meetings, whatever that might be. We run some sessions, we call them stop, start, continue sessions with our clients to extract this type of information. Really simple, but massively effective in the data that you can get from that. And then that just drives forward massive amounts of engagement. And I have clients ring up and go, oh my God, can you come and do that once a month? Because productivity for the last month's just gone through the roof. People want a voice. That's what they want, you know. So knowing that their opinion matters, and because they've suggested something, you then go and implement that, they get a real buzz from it. But in terms of reward, it's one of my favourite questions that I get. So I love it when a client phones up and says, oh, we're thinking about implementing this bonus scheme or more holidays. What do you think? Actually, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what the staff think, you know. What if they don't want a bonus system? What if they don't want more holidays? You know, it's all well and great saying, yay, look at our shiny new bonus system. And everyone's like, what's this rubbish that they've done here? So, you know, we've got to ask them. Send out surveys, anonymous surveys if you want. We did one last month for a client who, this was an actual conversation. We're going to introduce a bonus, Leisha. I said, tell you what, just go out and ask first. Bonus did not come up. Nobody wanted it. Really? They wanted more holidays for loyalty. They wanted more team days to improve communication. Loads of other stuff that they hadn't thought of that was really, really easy to do. And now they've implemented a load of it. They've just had their best month on record this year.
Fantastic. Just moving on to the next point then, in terms of automation, flexible working, my view on it is that engineering is not the most forward-thinking market in terms of flexible working. It's been a very, very slow adopter of flexible working from home, and I think the past few months have maybe shown that we can actually do certain jobs from home. I appreciate that you can't do all your jobs from home, but one thing that I wanted to know really from the panel was, can automation help with flexible or remote working options for engineering staff, and if so, in what regard? And I'll throw that to Mike first.
Can I just go back to the previous point just for a minute, Joe? And I'll come back to this. One of the, and I think it's useful to say this. Everybody sees automation as a threat to jobs, but the trade unions are actually in favour of automation,
Right.
and they've gone in print as saying they're in favour of automation. But, and there's a big qualification on that, they want equitable sharing of the benefits of the automation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. And this comes back to the, if you like, the flexible working, all the rewards is, you know, the workforce in general, the unions in general are all in favour of automation, provided everybody gets a reasonable share of the benefits of that. And in terms of flexible working, I think COVID, if you like, has taught us one thing. I know a few companies, I'm not going to name them, where they were totally opposed to flexible working. Everybody had to go to the office to do their job. And because of COVID, they've been forced into, okay, everybody now has to work from home. And they've actually realized that they can trust the workforce. They found them to be more productive. And actually, they're now, even when we come out the back of all of this, they won't be insisting that everybody goes back to working 9 to 5 or whatever it is in the office. They will be allowing a certain amount of flexible working. Now, in terms of, if you like, manufacturing automation on the production line, you still need people in the factory. You will always need people in the factory. But you can do things like monitor maintenance remotely. You can check to see that the equipment's running successfully. I know a very small company down in Luton that's got a robot unloading and injection molding machine, and they make industrial floor tiles. And they have 2 people in the factory. And the only reason they have 2 people in the factory is legally they're not allowed to have 1. So you know, they've found two lots of jobs basically, but they run it overnight with nobody there. And it's only a small company, but the owner effectively gets a text message if something stops, and he then goes to work to sort it out. So it is doable, and I think, you know, automation, as in, if you like, desktop automation, software that we use for sharing work, cooperating at work, and so on. The greater use of that is going to mean that more and more people can work from home. And it's got to be better. It's got to be better from a time point of view. You know, why spend 2 hours a day driving back and from work? You could work an extra hour, have an extra hour yourself, and everybody benefits. You reduce the carbon footprint because nobody's driving. You know what I mean? It is beneficial to everybody if we can start to embrace these kind of steps. But unfortunately, it can't apply to everybody, because there are, you know, you will need people in the factories to do some of the tasks for sure, and we need to figure that out in terms of how we handle it.
Okay, Lisa, flexible working.
Yeah, so I've always been a massive advocate of flexible working, and it's really interesting. We have clients, like Mike said, who would always want people to come into the office, and still have done throughout the pandemic, and have been forced to have people working from home. And of course, a lot of people now want to. They enjoy being able to pick the kids up and having dinner with the family every night, and not having an hour on the M62 every day, or whatever it might look like. And I think what's going to happen is, you know, those companies that were embracing technology hardly felt a difference during lockdown, because they were ready for it. They were ready to work from home. You know, we're finding that our younger generation, as they come through into the workforce, they not only want flexibility, they expect it. So if we've got companies that are failing to embrace that, they're going to get left behind, and people are going to vote with their feet and go and work with the competitors who are all for flexible working. And I think those companies that are really going to shine are going to be the ones leading the way and saying, right, guys, it's been a topsy-turvy few months, but we found out it can work. What do you all want to do moving forward? Is it a hybrid model between some people in the office and some not, some working from home, etc.? You know, again, it's an individual thing. You will have individuals who want to be in every single day, and they like the routine, and you'll have other people who want 2 days from home, and other people who want 5 days from home. So ask, you know, don't wait for people to come to you and say, can I work flexibly? Go out again, communicate out and say, what do we all want? Can we make it work?
And Russell, flexible working, your thoughts?
Yeah, just reflect back on the situation we've had in 2020. You know, my experience was in an industry where you were needing to come into the office, and the management were very much wanting to see you to understand what you're doing. Obviously, 2020's come along, and there's a lot of people within that same business that are now permanently based at home. And the trust has changed, not just automation systems, but the flexibility. There's a lot less stress in the, certainly in my field of network colleagues saying, "Oh, a lot less stress because I can do this. I can pick the kids up," and there's more time. The work-life balance has been shifted massively in 2020, and I think, I think employers are seeing this as a major turning point, because you still get the productivity. In fact, in some cases, you get an improved productivity because people aren't spending those 2 hours stuck in traffic. Sorry, the M40 was shut for 4 hours. I can't do this. I can't do that. So it has, naturally progressed. I think automation systems certainly give us that remote working option, as like what Mike was saying earlier. But you are still going to need people that when when everything stops, that has to go into the office or the factory or wherever to make sure that it's back up and running again. But yeah, certainly it will help with the flexibility and remoteness as automation comes online.
Good. One thing I wanted to ask as well was the panel's advice about maintaining engagement levels amongst the workforce. So basically, I'll throw it out to all of you together. We can talk about this together. What would your advice be to basically keep engagement levels high and keep attrition levels as low as possible in the introduction of these systems, obviously? And I'll put that out to Mike first.
It is all about, I know we've said it, we keep saying it, communication. But having said that, it isn't just about sort of, getting everybody in a room at the beginning of the project and saying, this is what we're going to do. It's about doing that on a continuous basis, keeping people involved. So making sure they understand what's going on, but also asking them what they think, getting their input to it, so they feel part of the project. So it's not just a one-way traffic in terms of communication. You're trying to encourage them to talk to you all the time. I think the more people feel engaged, if you like, the more they feel part of the business, the more they feel valued. And you really do that, not necessarily, as Lisa said, it isn't always about money. It's about making people feel valued because you ask them for their opinion. You ask them for their advice. If they feel valued, you're not going to struggle in terms of keeping people, because most of the time what people want is to be part of the team. It isn't necessarily about taking home X amount of money. It's about being recognized as a key element of the team with a contribution to make. That's my opinion anyway. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm sure Lisa's got...
I was just going to say, we'll throw that out to Lisa, because I can imagine, again, this is another one of your strong points, Lisa.
Yeah, one of the biggest transformation projects that I ever worked on, there was a board level project team set up, and I asked to be part of it. And I went in the first meeting, I said, where's the sales guy? Where's the maintenance guy? Where's the programmer? What are we doing? What the decisions can't be made here. You've got to involve everybody. So we empowered, the sales guy had to then go back and tell all the sales team what was happening. The maintenance guy had to go back and tell all the maintenance guys. So it wasn't Lisa from HR spurting some more rubbish about what's happening in the company. It was one of their peers, it was one of them. And the levels of engagement that we got, we used to have people, this was a national company, we used to have people waiting in branch for any of the project team to turn up saying, can I be part of it? I want to be part of this, because you're actually listening to all of us and we're all having a say. So, and that's really important right from the start. And do you know what? If you haven't done that at the start, that's cool. Don't just carry on though. Just put your hand up and say, actually, let's start we need to involve people at all levels across all disciplines, or you're not going to get a truly holistic approach, and you're always going to have a set of people somewhere that aren't engaged.
Yeah. And finally, Russell?
Yeah, for me, again, communication. You've got to communicate what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, and not just once a week. It's discussions. It's finding the motivators that people hold key to themselves and making sure that they're involved.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to ignore the really passionate people in the business, then you will really start to fail as a business, because you've got to keep them going. You've got to keep that ambition, that passion flowing through into the workforce.
One of the final points I wanted to come on to was the positives of automation systems. So for someone who, I don't want to keep going on about the negatives too much, because I think that you could just go down a rabbit hole, and I think there's enough negativity in the world at the moment, so we'll keep it on the positive side. Lisa, in your opinion, what are the positives of automation to someone who may be fearful of their job, do you think?
Okay, so people are fearful of the job. If we go back to what we said before, if we've got a good culture, we're going to know already that they're fearful. So that's a positive in itself, that we can plan for the fact that people are nervous. But, is it not a chance for them to do something different, enhance their skills, retrain, a new challenge, the excitement of learning something new? Yeah. If we've got this culture of openness and honesty, we're going to know all these things, because we've been having these conversations before any project even kicked off, and they've been involved, and they know what their succession plan is going to look like. If there is a point that at a point in time, exactly what they did before isn't going to be exactly what they did in future. So if we know what we're scared of, we can mitigate those fears and work with them and channel that fear into energy and positiveness for the next phase.
Mm-hmm. Good. Mike?
I agree with everything that Lisa just said. It is opportunities. But to me, and I said it before, so I'm going to repeat myself, but companies that invest in automation will become more competitive. They will grow. They will employ more people. It's kind of that simple, at least in my head. And those that don't, you will get the opposite effect. And we've, I'm old enough to remember the decline of heavy industry in the UK in the 70s, yeah. and an awful lot of people ended up losing their jobs. And a lot of that was down to the fact that we didn't change. In the UK, we weren't competitive. We weren't changing to meet what the rest of the world was doing. And unless we do change, unless we grow, we become more competitive, we use the latest technologies, we're going to have the same problem. So to me, it is about accepting that change will happen, and being part of it and wanting to be part of it. And I think, I don't want to get political, but in the not too distant past, we had, at least in this country, manufacturing wasn't seen as important. And the future was all about our financial institutions, and I think that kind of realization that maybe that wasn't correct kicked in about 2009 when all the banks fell apart. But manufacturing still isn't given the recognition that it deserves, and it's an important part of the UK economy. And really, in simple terms, manufacturing makes money for the country because we actually make something, we add value. And if we can grow manufacturing in this country back to the sort of levels it used to be, then we stand a chance of being competitive on the world stage, improving our economy, making the whole, the lives better for everybody, if you like, because manufacturing not only generates jobs, it also generates money that then feeds into the service economy. And effectively, so I'm all in favor of manufacturing, and I think to get a strong manufacturing sector, we need investment in skills, and investment in automation and other technologies to make it competitive. So, I think it's a positive thing, yeah. And anybody that wants to get involved in that, there are opportunities to do it and to really grow their careers through that, particularly if you like the younger people, because for them it's easier. They've got the kind of skills that are needed. They're brought up on computers and gaming machines. They've got all those skills and attributes that you need to apply to high-tech manufacturing today.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think without getting too political, and I don't want this to be a political broadcast at all, but I think the people that kept this nation running during lockdown, it was mainly the manufacturing companies, wasn't it? Whether you were making food, toilet roll, or you were making face masks. I think the way that everybody came together. I've spoken to a lot of people who were involved in the ventilator challenge from doing my job, who were literally just chucked in straight in the deep end, and I think that's a really, really good thing, and actually shows what we can do as a nation. Which I think, and again, without getting too political, I think, you know, the key workers were pretty much, like you say, it was all people involved in that kind of manufacturing process, wasn't it, really, who did keep things moving. Russell, just from your end, the positives to automation to someone who may be fearful of their job.
Yeah, again, comes back to the selling of the idea of how much it's going to make their life better.
Yeah.
The upskilling, the training opportunities, how to better themselves, how to give themselves more work-life balance, freeing up time. All of those elements, I think, are the positives from the automation system, and I think will fit well within the future businesses.
Good. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll wrap it up on a nice positive end. I think I've got a lot out of this. Thank you very much to you guys for taking an hour out of your time to talk about all this. We will be recording this as well. If anyone wants to have a copy, please do let me know. We will make a shortened version of it as well if you can't sit through the entire sort of 50 minutes to an hour. But I've really enjoyed myself. Has anyone else got anything to add before we wrap up? Or?
I just spotted something on the chat. Let me just open it. So there's Haley mentioned that she'd disagree with funneling kids into these streams so early on, agree to teach them programming and these kinds of thinking, but ultimately the kids won't be picking careers until a lot later on. I changed careers at 23, graduated with a social science degree, but went into software development. Lots of people actually figure out later on what they want to do. I think you're absolutely right there. One thing that I would want to add to that, and I suppose I maybe should have given some context around my thought process with getting it into schools earlier, is because I'm a governor at an alternative provision school. So that's, if just in case anyone doesn't know, that's a school that mainstream education just isn't working for these kids. So they do vocational stuff. So they go from being expelled for a period of time or expelled forever and go into one of these alternative provision schools in the hope that they leave with something. And what I've seen is that these kids really start shining when they can do something that's not having to, I suppose, technological stuff, stuff with the hands. They start to shine, and I think my angle was more that than saying we should be forcing people down a route. It's just for those kids that struggle with a lot of mainstream education, I think there's potentially some opportunity that we could, if there was things like these topics taught at a younger age, that might engage them more to then be bothered about doing the English and the maths because they need it to go and play with robots in future, So that was kind of the angle I was coming at for that.
Good. Have we got any further points?
No, that's great. Thank you, Joe. Been most enjoyable.
Thank you very, very much for participating, and I'll see you all soon.